teams, what's the name of the child that you want?
Effie Mastrokostas.
Can you spell it last name for me, please?
Sure can. Mastrokostas.
Okay. Ms. Hopewell? Nicolette Capua, C-A-P-U-A.
And I have Luca Bonello. B-O-N-E-L-L-O. Okay, and let's just go over what they got initially on the rubric, on the piece of work. Effie, what did she receive on her rubric score?
A2.
I have 2 out of 3.
Nicolette was 2 out of 3.
And so was Luca.
Okay, so the task that the children had to complete was balancing a checkbook with adding and subtracting rational numbers. So the task was, Mr. Boyle recently broke his cell phone. He wanted to purchase a new one. And these are some of the actions that happened in his bank account. On October 1st, he had a balance of $225. He wrote a check for $105.25. So after writing that check, he should have a balance of $120 in his account. On October 12th, he withdrew $430.50. So he should have an account balance of negative $310.50. And then on October 15th, he deposited $620.50. And he should have had an answer of $310 for balance in his check. Positive. So, looking at Nicolette's work, she had a starting balance of $225.25. After she wrote, after the Boyle wrote the check for $105.25, Nicolette was able to get $120 even, which was correct. On October 12th, when she withdrew the $430.50, she got a remaining balance of negative $310.50, which is correct. When he deposited his paycheck of $620.50, Nicolette arrived at $931. The answer should have been $310. So that's where her error lies in the balancing of the checkbook, is at $931. So before we look at her mistakes there, her answer for part C would be correct or not, depending on the answer she arrived at for her checkbook. So looking at her student work, it appears in step 3, she did not bring down the negative sign for the $310.50, and she just kept it as a positive number. So when she added the $620.50, she arrived at $931. So it appears that she had a transcription error, and she didn't go back and check her work.
So I'm thinking that it was either that, the transcription error, or it could also potentially have been that she didn't know the rules for adding numbers with different signs, so maybe it could have been that as well. All right, so moving on to next student, Luca. I will record it. Thank you. So Luca also was able to subtract the check for $105.25 to arrive at the correct answer of $120. He then, on his chart, did write that he withdrew $430.50 out of his account, but he arrived, also arrived at the correct answer of negative $310.50. And then when he deposited an additional $620.50 into the account, he ended up with an answer of $310.50. So just looking at his work, he just had that 50 cents extra in his answer, because the correct answer should have been 310. His explanation of whether or not he could afford it still was accurate, but he could not, because he was only 50 cents off, so it did reflect the answer. But just looking at his math work, it looks like he either just, it really just looks like he neglected to add 50 cents to get to the next dollar, which wouldn't make sense, because then it really should have been 300, he still got 310. So his math really just doesn't make sense. He had the 50 cents written there, but doesn't have it in the answer. I'm just also a little bit concerned because he subtracted, but doesn't have the 620 on top. So I'm wondering maybe if he just did it in his head and said, oh, well, I know 310 is half of 620, so I halved it, and then I sort of just did it fast, so I forgot about 50 cents and just left the 50 cents there. So that's what I see about Luca.
No. Okay, I will be discussing Effie's work. Check time for me, please. All right, while looking at Effie's work, I noticed right off the bat that Effie came up with the correct answer. When I looked into her work and went step by step with what she did, I noticed that she forgot from, she did step one correctly, which is $225. She then subtracted the $105.25 and came up with the correct answer of $120 even. You then see when she does the withdrawal for $430.50, she leaves off the 50 cents and forgets to do that. And then when she shows Mr. Boyle's deposit of the $620.50, she comes up again, leaving off the 50 cents, comes up with the correct answer of $310 even. This tells me two things. Number one, she got part C correct because she was able to articulate her answer. The problem that I saw is her leaving the 50 cents out of two different parts of the equation. Looking at that, I thought of two things. Number one, she could have copied off of the person next to her and came up with the correct answer and then just tried to explain her work. But what seemed more logical would be that she used the calculator, figuring out the answer, came up with $310 even, and then just tried to backtrack and show work so she wouldn't lose points for showing her work. Or, third, she made the same mistake with subtracting or adding decimal points on two different occasions and left off the exact amount of 50 cents on both, which is a difficult thing to do. So.
Yeah, so in my thinking, I was thinking maybe that because she was withdrawing 50 cents and then depositing 50 cents, she canceled it out, but it speaks to, being accurate with the calculations on the daily state exam. If they are not accurate using the numbers that are given and make an error that way, they will not be full credit because the answer will not be completely correct.
Right, so even if you did use the calculator, it's going to be up to reinforce in class that in your work it needs to reflect the exact numbers. Otherwise, like you suggested, she might have copied from someone, but the person doesn't know her. They might assume the same thing, so the numbers definitely have to be accurate within the work, even if the calculator is being used for the test or the problem.
Okay. So now that we've identified some noticings of the student work, looking at your notes, Ms. Johnson, let's try to find some trends or patterns that we see in each of the students.
Well, in Luca and Effie, they both did have an issue with the change portion of the dollar amounts, where mine, I don't know if he kind of left it off and just left it as 50, and in Mrs. Amy's he left it off completely. So they had a similar issue with the decimal amounts in the change.
Okay. Then I think Nicolette kind of could tie into there because she was able to identify the relevant information from the problem and correctly place it in the checkbook transaction piece of it. However, when she proceeded to step 3, she completely ignored the negative sign or forgot to bring down the negative sign, so maybe not paying attention to detail.
Right, so one ignored the decimal, one ignored the sign. So in some cases they were ignoring the relevant information.
We gave them identify because they didn't carry it throughout. Okay. So, thinking about a strategy, now that we identified the trend, a strategy to implement in the coming week for the now question is students checking their work for accuracy.
Yeah, definitely agree all cases, it seems like it could have been an avoidable mistake. It wasn't something, with the exception of Nicolette, where it might have been a conceptual error with the signs, we're not quite sure, so let's just assume that it wasn't and that she did just forget it, because she did have the subtraction, but that it was missed, it was absent, so we can maybe assume that she just forgot it.
And then it also, checking of their work, because it is a cartoon, maybe they could use a calculator to check for accuracy, and then even once she arrived at her answer, maybe using her cube strategy to ask herself, does my answer make sense? So.
Okay, so the strategy that we'll implement this week is students checking their answer.
Use the calculator.
So what I think we'll just do is that since we just got this performance task, we'll give it back to them, go over it with them so everyone can kind of see where they had the mistakes or where their strengths were as well. And then we can model how we could have checked it with the calculator, and that's introducing the strategy. So we're not really doing anything extra, just showing, okay, well, how can we check this with the calculator? On the Elmo, we can just put that in there and
Using the same performance test doesn't create any more work, and they'll be able to go through the task. So, for the post-assessment, we'll just maybe create another now question.
yeah, that makes sense. This way, something very similar, and then we can say check your answer with the calculator so that we can see if that strategy then helped these 3 students and in turn help the whole class with that new strategy. So let's just make one up real quick.
All right, so let's say we'll come up with the context table if you want to jot down some numbers.
Sure. Okay.
So starting with $175.75 in the checkbook, and withdrawing $210.50, writing a check, and then depositing $515.25.
Was it 5, 25?
So again, they'll be dealing with the change in the decimal and the changing of the signs to the numbers.
So we're kind of like addressing multiple things at once, because since decimals was an issue, we're still including the decimals as part of that problem, and hopefully by using calculator, we'll be able to just kind of fix their mistakes in the intro. Okay, so we know, so next week we'll just bring these 3 same students,
What's their post-assessment?
and then we'll see if that strategy was effective. If not, then we'll have to think of another strategy, go back to the drawing board, maybe it was something else that we neglected to find.
But because we don't know that, maybe we also should be coming with a new task in case everyone made gains from the strategy implemented, and we'll have to analyze a new piece of work.
You can also just make that task up too instead, because it might be a lot to discussing.